Let's get into this market picture now and get a sense of where things have fared better or worse throughout today's trade as well. Particularly now, and what we have is mid-afternoon trade, of course. Then, if you take a look at the Asian market earlier this morning, we saw 0.5% gains for the Hang Seng out in Hong Kong. So a much better picture on that front, even though we got a sense of slight negativity out in Japan in particular. It doesn't seem that factory activity there is beginning to pick up, but China seems to be steamrolling ahead, purchasing managers index there, the PMI number seemingly coming off to a better start. So the Shanghai Composite also following that mark and getting into a better position. It does mean that perhaps some sort of recovery is coming into play. Whether that is sustained, of course, is going to be the big question, and it will fully depend on whether the coronavirus can be curbed across the rest of the world as well. Onto the European market, a bit of negativity for the FTSE 100 out in London on that front, but overall, the DAX in Germany and the CAC 40 in France still managing to see some gains. That means that the local index as well has been able to gain somewhat, even if it is just 0.33% there at 54,316 points. The biggest gainers have been the gold index, which is up more than 1% today, with even the resources, of course, sharing in that joy as investors get into that market picture then as well. Overall, the industrials 0.8% to the good. Financials and the banking stocks also enjoying some positive territory to boot. Taking in on your commodities then as well, $41.28 a barrel for Brent crude, just over 1% lower for the price there. And I suppose big questions still being asked on the supply and demand side as to what will happen when demand does finally come back. Will the OPEC nations and their allies perhaps continue to cut production of oil, or will we see them perhaps begin to ramp up as demand begins to pick up again? Will they want this price to go much higher than it currently is? And that will be of keen interest there. Slight uptick for platinum, with gold sitting at $1,768 a fine ounce there. Onto your currency, not much to write home about here, unfortunately. Around 1/3% weaker actually at present. 17 Rand 32 against the US dollar. It's 19 Rand 41 for for a euro, should I say. 21 Rand and 20 cents then for a British pound as well. All right. Owen Nkomo from Nkunzi Wealth joins us as well then to unpack this market picture a little bit more. Owen, thank you so much for the time. It's a market that is a little bit weird. We keep seeing a few gains, particularly out in the United States, but it doesn't seem as though there's a real desire and a need to get bullish again, if you want to call it that.
Thank you, Arabile. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the market is very confusing at the moment. We basically see one good day and then we see a bad day. You know, there's so much volatility, and it's very difficult to make out what the market wants to actually do in the short term. And again, it's obviously a function of all the various things that are at play at the moment, but the coronavirus question and the type of numbers that we're starting to get from companies that are reporting is making it very difficult for us as investors to have a consolidated view about the market in terms of where the market should be going. I really expect this volatility to remain for the balance of the year, actually, until we sort of get these numbers starting to decline and maybe a vaccine is announced for COVID-19.
Yeah. Owen, the Fed in the US said that they're willing to continue to help in any particular way when it comes to more aid if necessary, that is then, for the coronavirus situation. The South African Reserve Bank yesterday saying that, their interest rate regime or their inflation monitoring regime has allowed them to be able to react better as well to the scenario and the situation of COVID-19. Is that the end when it comes to assistance and help? Is it now just all up to the end of the virus and the economy beginning to pick up again, and that's how we'll see things get better?
No, I think that the South African Reserve Bank will continue to do everything it can to sustain some sort of recovery in the economy. But importantly, they'll always prioritize the use of monetary policy over anything else. And I do think they still have some room to cut down interest rates, particularly if inflation continues to go in the direction that it's going. Inflation is trading closer to the 3% level, which is the lower end of the range of 3 to 6% for inflation. And I believe that gives them ammunition to continue to reduce interest rates. Obviously, growth, the GDP that we saw today as a GDP that is not factoring in the second quarter of this year, where I do believe that we will see extensive declines in the sectors that we're supposed to be leading the economy in a normal environment. But I do believe that the central bank will continue to do what they can, particularly using monetary policy to support the recovery environment.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily help, though, that you have a growth figure of -2% for the first quarter of the year, which doesn't even take into account the full impact then of COVID-19. It's going to get worse before it gets any better.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, this Q1 number, third quarter successively, where we are seeing negative growth, and that was before COVID hit. I do expect that you're going to see double-digit declines in some of these sectors for the first quarter, for the second quarter, and I don't expect any different in the second quarter of this year as well. You've got agriculture doing well, finance doing well, investments naturally declining, construction, manufacturing being the weaker sectors as expected. But like I say, it's still going to be a long way out before we can start to see some recovery in the system, Arabia.
Should the market then be pricing in any kind of interest for the near term, or is this really a long-term play that we're looking at 2 to 3 years then as well for a recovery, not just in the markets? And will the markets recover almost in unison with the rest of the economy, or is that going to move at its own pace here?
I think the markets have already started to recover away from the economy. We're almost back to where we were before, the last week of March in 2020. From a market's perspective, people have digested that this COVID virus is not going to be here forever. I don't know what's giving them that idea, but I believe that's the united vote from market participants. And I'm saying that because you're seeing a very rapid growth in the infection rate in the country. You're seeing a rapid growth in the cities in America that have decided to open up. But I think that the markets always lead the economy from a recovery perspective. So the markets, in my view, will continue to trade higher than the economy will reflect. So, I think maybe people's views are going to start adjusting if we see America and China starting to reflect a negative picture in terms of economic reporting that comes through. If we see aggressive losses, as we've seen in America in terms of jobs, if we continue to see bigger losses in terms of the growth in the economies of China and America and the Eurozone, I think potentially economists are going to start factoring in that, we will actually realize that minus 10% growth in the country. Whether or not the market will follow those numbers is different. I think that the use of quantity.
All right. Owen, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for that. Owen Nkomo there from Nkunzi Wealth. Unfortunately, the line not helping us as well there, unfortunately. So we apologize for the breakup in some of that line as well there as we got things underway. So it's a slightly positive tinge to the market picture. Even the rand, not really much home to write home about on that front. 1730 odd against the US dollar. So a mixed bag when it comes to the rest of the globe, though, particularly out in Europe. And that is the market will follow on to. What happens then tomorrow? Well, we'll continue to give you that update on the market picture. My colleague Nzinga Qunta, though, does have more news for you right after this. She even gets to speak